if we hadn't had the bench, the chair wouldn't have been there, and if the architecture wasn't there, the bench wouldn't have been there. So it's kind of like all these kind of products on top of each other, and you could say different scales inspiring or influencing on each other through the process. Yeah, KiBiSi is a partnership of 3 different companies: Kilo Design, Big Architects, and Skibsted Ideation. And you could say the company kind of merges the faculties of its 3 founders. The design sensibility and production know-how of Kilo Design, and the big scale or the big ideas and big scale perspective of Big, and then the idea-driven innovation and brand awareness of Skibsted Ideation. And then you can say we come from different worlds, we have different backgrounds, and we represent kind of different skills. But we also have a common language, and we are all very focused on ideas in products, that being like a very small product or being a very big product. But this that you do serious products that kind of communicate what the product is about, that has a clear story and is well thought and in a language that is kind of unique because of its idea, and hopefully on top of that will survive many years into the future. In general, I think we also have a Scandinavian design tradition that is kind of built on kind of well-crafted design and in an expression and design language that I think kind of also already has shown that it's meant to last. Like we have a lot of like Arne Jacobsen, Hans-Jørgen Wegner, all these guys. And I think that we are kind of on one hand standing on top of the shoulders of these guys, but we are also trying to put something new into it. And I think in general we base most of our design on good ideas and good craftsmanship. We spend a lot of time on kind of getting rid of fluff and kind of focus on the initials or the essentials of the product. And I think if you do that, it also gets this kind of this language that hopefully will survive because it's not influenced by what is going on right here or right now. I think because this, you could say, is also a user-driven product. This is product of a collaboration between sound engineers, designers, and sound technicians, and close to, I think, a team close to 30 international DJs giving feedback through the whole process on the product. Being part of defining the brief and, as I said, giving feedback all the way through on fit, flexibility, kind of functionality, and kind of all of you could say all what is necessary in a product like this. And this product is developed not for, you could say, it's developed as a professional tool for the DJ. So we didn't like walk around looking at what was trendy at the moment. We tried to look at like actually taking these guys serious, that they're actually doing a serious piece of work while we are getting battered on the dance floor. And we wanted them to give them a tool like the drill for the carpenter or something like that wasn't a show off, but was actually a serious piece of product. And I think we managed to do that. And you could say that is also why there is no logos, no nothing, all over the product, and kind of all logos and left and right symbols are embedded on the inside of the product. And we also went for developing a new detail and interlocking system that also gives it kind of like this tool feel to it. I think that what we focused on was saying that there are some features that we can't get rid of. So we tried to focus on kind of exaggerating them and then turning down the volume on the rest of the product. And then it was very much about defining kind of a DNA that could kind of draw the rest of the product. So it's very much about kind of a holistic thinking, meaning that the ear cup relates to the brace, that relates to the inside padding, and so on. So that's kind of, and you could say that is also for the rest of the AIAIAI products, that is this kind of DNA thinking, trying to create a balance in a product and not just like throw a lot of different components in a pile. And I think that is also some of, you could say that is also some of the things about the the BIOMEGA bikes. This is about holistic thinking, trying to get rid of things, integrating the propeller shaft, and so on and so on. I think it has been super interesting, and I think we are now here with a way better product than we would have had if there hadn't been all these different parties involved in the project. So I think, like, in general, we test all our things, of course, but these are actually professionals. They use them in different ways than you and I would use them. Like, I don't do like this all the time, and they do, and they like need to be tested in a certain environment with like very loud sound, and still like, yeah. I think it has been perfect, and you could also say, like, we are now developing new projects also in collaboration with AIAIAI, and it's kind of running the same way, just with other user groups. Yeah, we designed like different sets of cushions, and like different sets of cushions has different sound, meaning that if you have an open kind of foam structure, it doesn't provide the same sound on your ear. And some of those things we were not aware of in the same when we started out, and all these, like, there has been created so many different cushions to actually create the right sound for the product. But also, like DJs, there are different religions and DJs want different things. That is kind of like being in love with food, and some people love some food and others love other foods. So that's one of the things. And then, of course, there has been a lot of adjustment. There's something about the flexibility in the brace. You could say, like, how it actually flexes without breaking. And there's also, like, different people want different pressure, and all these different aspects are also things that we work on now, on developing the product for future versions. We were asked by Danish brand Mutu to create a spoon and a spade for cooking, and a set of salad servers. And we kind of went looking for, all of us cook, so we kind of went through these processes and figured out that you normally always have this dish lying around, or you have to place it like somewhere else. And we thought, like, how could we fix that? And then we came up with the idea about the cut, and actually also the product is called Hang Around, that if you could make your kitchen tools hang around on your pots and pans, that would actually be quite smart, so that you don't leave your things in the dish or in what you cook. And then we kind of tried, then we researched a lot. We found all the cut section of the different pots and pans, and we made a series of different tests. Like, these are all different tests on how you actually make because all pots and pans are different. So you could say we have all sorts of different cuts. So, and we ended up actually what we in the beginning thought was kind of very complicated. We ended up like with a thing like that. But also through the process, we had to figure out that we couldn't fit like 100% of all pots and pans, but we could maybe make it to 75 or something like that. But you could say again, it's focused on the idea, and the rest is like super simple, and also made to survive and kind of survive on one hand on quality, but also on look and feel, hopefully for many years. And I think that it's also a very Scandinavian way of thinking sustainability. So, like, I would point out a lot of our different projects. And I think that when things are strong enough and unique enough in their idea and expression, I think they survive. We recently won the Danish Design Prize for Tracks, the headphones lying on the table there. Yeah, they have the blue ones there. And you could say that is also a very simple product. It's more soft than the TMA in its expression, and it also has like some retro references to the 80s headphones that were around. They're just like thought in a new way, and they so that you have a brace, and then you have Then you have these small connectors that comes in different colors, so that the user can kind of interact themselves and create their own kind of color hybrids and getting new colors and so on. So I think that like the product is very simple, but it also has this built-in flexibility of user interaction. But I think that the overall look and idea that when you see the product, you read how it works. And I think that when you can do very simple things, also in a chair like this, that when they are so simple that you read it as 4 boards that are wrapped very simple around each other. And then on one hand, the chair is very conceptual, but it's also very banal and just a chair with 4 legs, a back and a seat. When we were asked by Danish manufacturer or Danish brand Versus to create a new kind of flagship sofa for their collection. At this time, Bjarke was looking for a sofa, moving on his way to New York, and couldn't find a sofa. And we kind of decided to use that as a lead to designing a new sofa, being kind of the ultimate architectural sofa. And we went through a lot of different concepts and a lot of different ideas, but we ended up at the kind of most basic system around for creating an architecture, the brick bond system. And then, like, when that idea was in the box, then we just started to stack things and like build a series of different kind of compositions, figuring out all the proportions and how kind of like the construction and how they overlap. But it wasn't really enough. And like when it was just, to begin with, it was just super square bricks, but it didn't have the right feel. It didn't look comfy or cozy, all these things. And then we kind of had this reference to how you stack sandbags in flooded areas and war zones. And that kind of created this soft look that we were after. And then we also wanted to have this kind of crafted detail, and we went researching for like thousands of buttons, but couldn't find the ones that we thought fitted the project. And then we decided to design our own ones, and we ended up with a fiber concrete button, and then using these kind of sailor or climbing ropes as constructive detail. So you could say it's a mix of an architectural system, and then like the tailor-made feel of the button and the softness of how you actually treat a pillow to give it the right expression. And all these different things put together, I think, is also a good picture of how we work and how kind of the different partners contribute with different things in the process. But you could say, like, when we work, we talk a lot and we email a lot and we do Skype and we do meetings. Like, often we are located in different areas, or Bjarke is in New York, and Jens Martin is maybe in Dubai, or like if he's here. Like, we always meet up when we are at the same place at the same time. But you could say we always throw ideas in, all of us. And we always create a ton of ideas to begin with and a lot of leads, and then we kind of try to figure out what works, what has the quality to get through, and then we maybe start out with 100 and 10 goes through, and then we develop them again, and then maybe like 5 survives, and then we kind of again start to like peel off all these layers, figuring out if the idea is actually good enough to survive in the end, and then you end up with kind of one thing. Like, so when 3 partners at the same time think an idea is good, then we have kind of like, then we believe that enough in it so that it should survive. But then of course also we have our collaborators and our different manufacturers, and all is kind of a process on developing things. We don't force anything. So you could say in general we also try to do the best for the brand. We don't like just create things and like throw them on the table and say like, hey, take this. We try to work closely with the brands we collaborate with and try to kind of get to the core DNA of what they are and what the perfect mix of them and us would be. And then we try to develop on top of that. So we don't often just pick things from around. Say this is a product of the architecture that it's built for. This was created for the Danish pavilion in Shanghai that BIG designed, and this is, you could say, is a product of a long social bench, which is an art piece created in collaboration between BIG and Jeppe Hein. But it's a long social bench that kind of moves seamlessly through the pavilion, creating different areas for hangout, bars, etc. And this is, you could say, that has two kind of pliable planks for the back, or for the seat, or two for the back. And we decided to kind of focus on bringing the main DNA of what would happen if we should do a chair out of a bench. How would that, what would that look like? And when we started kind of designing on that, then this came up pretty fast. But I think if we hadn't had the bench, the chair wouldn't have been there. And if the architecture wasn't there, the bench wouldn't have been there. So it's kind of like all these kind of products on top of it, of each other, and you could say different scales inspiring or influencing on each other through the process. So like there are these 12 screws underneath that you demount, and then it also comes in a box, in a little box you can carry, where the 4 elements are taken apart, so the customer assembles the chair themselves. So that means that if you buy 4 different chairs, you can put the front legs on one spot and the back legs in another spot, and you can kind of combine the different things. So, but you could say that wasn't, you could say in the process, it wasn't the idea to create a mixable chair, but because the chair was a product of the bench, and then when we kind of figured out wrapping the products, then suddenly, like, we also figured out that it had this built-in flexibility in it, and you could say that is also part of process. You could say that is this back leg coming out, creating this kind of spread leg. That is also what gives it a reference to our chair tradition. That is kind of creating the lines of the chair, giving it like a footprint that makes it stable. And I think that if it was just, if it would have been like straight up, like folded parallel all the way, and the same in the back, I don't think it would have had the same appeal to us. This is what makes it kind of human within chairs. So I think that, like, you could say, but it's also very diagrammatic. It keeps the same width, so it kind of like folds, does like this, and then it opens up to kind of meet the different the outer points of the footprint to make the chair stable. But this chair is built on the same lines as the tube chair that is standing down there. So you could say the kind of proportions and lines are overall the same. It has the same angles and the same opening between seat and back. And it also has the same kind of more or less footprint. These products, all these products are from the same family. And we've been working with AIAIAI since the beginning, like 4 or 5 years ago. And this was the first product. And they, at this time, this is 5 years ago, they came to us and asked if we would design a new set of headphones for them. And at this time, most headphones were either black and white, and they were made out of, mostly out of shelf, kind of off-the-shelf components. Kind of like what the bike industry does also, that you pick different components, you put them on a frame, and then you have a bike. Like, it's not that many people that look at the holistic picture of a bike. And we wanted to do kind of the same approach with this product. And that is, like, this was creating the first DNA for the company, AIAIAI. So this product also was part of defining some rules on how we build things on top of that and how we relate to the families, meaning that we are now launching, I think, 3 new products this year for AIAIAI that are new babies for the family. So this we are doing for the we do it with close relation to all the different products that are in there, meaning that we create things for the brand. We don't shop around on crazy ideas saying like, this is the new stuff. Like, we try to do it slowly and develop the brand like thoroughly and professionally through bringing new products that has their own DNA but also kind of have a close relation to the family. This is when we were asked to design the new series of bikes for PUMA. There was already one bike in the series. That was the BIOMEGA Boston bike, the one that has a wire running from here to here, and it's also working as a lock for the bike, meaning that if you cut the wire, the bike is kind of unrideable because it gets unstable because you break the triangle structure of it. But when we were asked to kind of develop this new series for of bikes, this tube was already defined being one of the DNAs on that bike, and we thought it was a pretty strong element that was also kind of copying the kind of posture of the PUMA, and we decided to bring that on in the series. And then in general, these different products has integrated carrier solutions. And when you look at the bike industry today, they are often, again, off-the-shelf product, meaning that if you have a basket, you put a basket on a bike, and then that is it. But we wanted to integrate the carrier solutions being part of the product, meaning that it like continues the line of the bike, and this, and it breaks up, and like so it's an extension of the bike rather than being this element that is put on top of the bike. And you could say the same lines and simplicity that is basis of the basket for the Pico bike is also some of the features or lines that follows the rest of the series through. You could say the bikes are influenced by, you could say, this cross-Atlantic feel, that it has some elements from the cruiser bike culture of the US, and then it has kind of European references on the other side, this being a merge of a BMX and a mini bike. And then there is like a bigger carrier, there is a male and a female version, and then there is a fixie kind of inspired bike also. But they are all, I would say, closely related to the brand, working for the brand, being part of a strategy for the brand, rather than us creating shape as artists. So again, creating DNA and overall rules on how you develop when you create families. I think we all respect our Danish design tradition. I think some of it is really good, and also some of it is not that good. But I think the things that are good, I think we respect and understand what is, or try to understand what is going on, and we also take these things with us when we design. But we also try to bring something new, and we think that products in general need ideas. That often, like if you have a strong idea, then the product have a tendency to draw itself, instead of us like pushing all sorts of different shape and identity into the product that maybe doesn't really want to be there. And that, I think, is this balance between brand and idea, and also design sensibility and production know-how, and how to actually develop a product and bring it to the market. So I like, I also have like Danish furniture classics at home, and also international. I totally love furniture. I studied furniture, so. And that is also why chairs are interesting, but we also try to interpret in a new way, and I think the SHANGHAY chair is a good example on that. But I also think it has this feel or look to it that kind of also, so it has this also Scandinavian simplicity in it, even though, and then you mentioned Lego, it also has the kind of built-in combination that you can create your own hybrids and you can play with it, and that is the same thing with this. This is also like when you see it, you go like like that is also like on one hand it's a good idea, but and you kind of when you look at it, then you say like, why didn't somebody do that before? And when you have that, when you find these, when you find the balance between concept and look and idea and all these different things, then I think that is where it happens for us. I don't do architecture. I did my internship at Plot. That was before Big and JDS Architects. And then I work closely with the architects that create the architecture, but I would more be working on a door handle or a lamp for a certain project that is being developed as the chair was developed on top of architecture or in close relation with architecture. Then we are at the moment developing a series of other products, lamps, door handles, all sorts of different things that connects to architecture, where we also try to use architecture as a generator for ideation and products. And I think that when that happens, like when you just don't scale the architecture or steal an idea that is like super simple, but when you actually go hunting for systems or ideas that you kind of dig out like a long way in a piece of architecture, and then actually a product comes out of it, like then the relation between the different scales at least come true. We created actually when Big opened up their studio, this office that we are in right now. We were asked to do a set of lamps for the office, and budget was like fairly low, and we were searching for good ideas. And you could say like Brug also has this like pretty bold approach to things where you can put like things together and you create topology, so you like mix things and stuff like that. And we went to the builders market, and then we like just ran around. We found like sockets for bulbs, and then we found like in the drainage like these tubes that goes on the sinks that like divides into two, and then we started like putting them together and mugging in like sockets and building things, and suddenly there was a bunch of bulbs there, like a huge lamp that like actually flat packs is a pretty cool product. It could come in a little box, and I think that if we hadn't had that approach, that lamp wouldn't have been there. And at the same time, we made the knot lamp, which is like this big ventilation tube that is like attached to the ceiling. Instead of being an object hanging at the end of a wire, it attaches kind of like this organism to the ceiling, and then it's kind of like tied into this huge knot. And it also kind of balance on in between, you could say, like showing off what you would normally hide, like because it's things that goes under the sink, or people hide it away in the cupboards and stuff like that. But suddenly in the right context, and when you mix it with like different typologies or like ideas, you put ideas on top of it, then suddenly there are like products in there that are that has a great value, and that wouldn't have been there if it wasn't for the process of doing these things in a certain way. And I think that like these two products are pretty related to Drog. I think there are a lot of products out there that are lacking ideas, or like actually that people figure out why they are put into the world. So I think that, but that is like through history there has been like a serious amount of products on the market, and we all have different perspectives on how we do these things. So again, as I stated earlier, like a good idea for me is maybe not a good idea for you. But I think that like that strong ideas, I think that like we could agree that this is an okay idea. And this, like at least it has a kind of serious approach that where you figure out what the idea is, and then you focus on that, like, and you communicate very clearly in what you do. You don't like throw like 10 different concepts into the same product and then you see what happens. Often we work with kind of this alchemy thinking where we also combine things, meaning that like that a knot plus a lamp equals a knot lamp. And like really kind of basic analog games, then that what happens when you merge things, and hybrids, you could also say the bikes are also kind of these cross-Atlantic hybrids of influence from the US and from Europe. And again, brick sofa is a hybrid of a kind of constructive principle and also this tailor-made feel and an expression of a sofa. It becomes the brick sofa. So I think that in general, these that things I think you can locate a good idea. This is tube chair, and it is also product of an influence of architecture, not in as a direct way as the Shanghai chair, but it's developed in relation to the 3 projects that BIG has designed in Ørestad, being the VM houses, the mountain, and the big house, the 8-figure. And kind of when we went looking in these projects, there were one thing that was kind of very outspoken in all 3 projects, and that was the relation between indoor and outdoor, and then also the main materials being wood and aluminium. And we wanted to design a chair that was kind of that with a takeoff in the overlap. On one hand, being influenced by our Scandinavian wooden carpenter tradition, and on the other hand, using the kind of modern possibilities in manufacturing through cast elements. And you could say the white parts are cast aluminium elements. They create the transition between vertical and horizontal and the back, and kind of merging legs, back, and seat into to one piece, but where you can clearly read the kind of tectonics of the chair, being that you have some elements that create the transition and other elements that are just, this is like the simplest, in my mind, the simplest tube or like wooden product around. It's like it's a tubular broomstick. And you could say there is a huge difference in between being like the simplest wooden part around and then like being a very kind of complicated element that assembles all these very simple pieces. So there are a little bit of both worlds in this product. And then like the relation indoor-outdoor, like that it also has some relation to a tradition of outdoor chairs, being like these element-built chairs, but we wanted to create a contemporary chair that was very simple in its expression, and also like a lot of garden chairs has square tubes, and this about implementing a more organic expression and shape in the chair also gives a different expression. And then it's available in monochrome also, but it hasn't been like the simplest chair in the world to develop, also because it is a combination of 2 materials, and one like keeps its shape and the other one is actually a natural material that works. So there has been some challenges in developing the product, but now it's there and on the market. A lot of the products we do are urban related, or like influenced by the urban culture that surround us, or like urban mobility, or these different things. All partners are urban people and are also international people, not only staying in Copenhagen. But you're totally right. There is what you say, a common language or a common focus in the things that are related, that is related to the city and to urban culture in general. You could say, for my own sake, as I said, grew up in the countryside, and I was, I think, 20 years old before I moved to the city. And I don't have any plans to leave it, like just around the corner. So also all these things, I think they are also a common thing for all 3 partners, and listed as one of the things that actually kind of holds us together. We are working on watches at the moment, and like that we hadn't done before. and that has been a pretty interesting collaboration. On one hand, bringing a whole new brand to the surface, but also creating a new line of products that relates to the brand, and also this creating a product. I don't wear a watch, but actually, when the brief is to create a watch that I would or we would wear ourselves, then it becomes kind of like, okay, then you actually have to fix it, or like you. But these things, like, I think in general we create things that we also find necessary in our own lives, and that are closely related to it. Like I use the headphones that we create, and I sit on the chairs we do, and like overall these things are related to what we do. But I like to bring things to the surface that you haven't seen before, or like that, and still things that are like that has, you know, tradition and history embedded, also with the brand and the good idea. I've been doing interior before. I have a kind of a tradition of I've been doing like TV sets. We've been doing a series of TV sets for MTV. I've been designing shops in Copenhagen and in London, and you could say I've always had like a big heart for products, and at that time we mainly did like all the interior jobs to pay our bills, because it's pretty hard to kind of start a product business up because of a long tradition of how you pay designers. But I think this jump in between, you could say different scales or different, like being interior design and product and where these things relate. I think we get that now from BIG, being part of this big kind of architectural creative muscle, like walking around, collaborating with the different projects and seeing all these things all the time. And then I think in general, this approach that we do, like we do a variety of different products, that we don't only do headphones, or we don't only do chairs, but we also do big upholstery, or like, and like next day we are working on a new in-ear headphone. And I think these like jumps in scale and jump in between different brands kind of keeps it fresh. And then definitely the collaboration between the partners, that like, you could say we have different mindsets, and we kind of bring different worlds to the table. And I think that is also what keeps it fresh. That is kind of like this battling in between different minds on bringing new products to the surface. But I think that is also, you could say, how we are approaching it. Like we just, in general, that this about like working with strong ideas and DNA that is in relation to the brands we are working with, and creating kind of unique pieces that hopefully will survive. And we like, I hope that my kids will still look at this in 10 years and hopefully they will think it's cool. And if they do that, then I think we have succeeded with a product like this. So I think we just need to be aware of what we do, and actually taking the things pretty serious, so that we just don't float the market with new products that are not well thought.